Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, MACtion is in week 3. If you guys know me, you guys know I love MACtion. I love Tuesday and Wednesday night college football in front of empty stands with crazy weather, crazy players, crazy plays. I just love this stuff. And so here, this is the week 13 Wednesday MACtion slate. This is the second to last MACtion slate of the year. And not gonna lie, y'all, I'm gonna miss it. But it's not a time to be sad. It's a time to try to make some money. Here in this episode, we're going to break down both of the games on Wednesday night, tell you what you can expect from each game, as well as who needs to be in your DraftKings and FanDuel lineups, and any leans for if you're betting player props or sides and totals for these games. Now, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that we can do this for the rest of our college football content all season long. We're going to have a little bit of a different recording schedule this week. I've mentioned previously on the show that I do coach the girls flag football team at the high school that I teach at. I absolutely love doing it. And we have a playoff game that is quite a long ways away from home on Wednesday night. So that's going to impact my recording schedule a little bit, but all of my content is still going to come out. And if you are subscribed, you will know when all of that drops. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive in. We got 2 games to break down. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so game number 1 on the Wednesday night slate is between Miami, Ohio, and Buffalo. Miami is 1.5-point favorites in this game with a game total of 40.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 21-20 in favor of the Redhawks. Now, Miami of Ohio, if you have not heard, they have a little bit of interesting scenario going on. If you look at the quarterback player pool on DraftKings or on Prize Picks or anything you're looking at, there's a name missing. Ain't no DeQuan Finn. DeQuan Finn, our guy who returned to the MAC this season after previously leading Toledo to the MAC championship game and then heading to Baylor last year, was back as the starter for Miami of Ohio this year. He is he's out, and apparently it's to prepare for the NFL. And I'm kind of baffled by it because I've always been a DeQuan Finn fan, enjoy watching him play. I don't think he's a day 1 or day 2 NFL pick, and I don't know. It's just not the biggest fan. I mean, obviously, hey, like I'm not going to sit here and bash a college kid, but like you do what you feels like is best for you. But it just seems like a weird decision. And I'm going to miss DeQuan Finn here on these MACtion slates because I always played him just because like that's my guy. Now, what that means is that Henry Hessen is going to be the starting quarterback for Miami of Ohio. Previously, he started the game against Toledo last week, went 11 for 38, 3 interceptions, ran the ball 12 times for 9 yards. Some of that was negated by sacks, put up 3.8 DraftKings points. It's not great, y'all. It's not great at all. But good news is that Toledo was one of the better defenses in the MAC, and now he's got a little bit of starting experience under him. And the fact that he did run the ball 12 times shows us that they're probably going to run him a little bit. And so you could make the case that there's a little bit of upside here for Hessen. I think if I were ranking starting quarterbacks on this slate, he's probably number 4, if I'm being completely honest. But I don't think he's a guy like on the Tuesday night slate. There was quarterbacks you could just X out of your player pool, right? I don't think he is one of those guys. This team is still implied to score 3 touchdowns. He is still the starting quarterback, and nobody's going to play him. So you could get a starting quarterback that has a little bit of upside for basically no ownership in playing Hessen. Now, at the running back position, so Miami of Ohio is actually one of well, I can't say that. On this slate, they rank 3rd in pass rate. They rank 92nd nationally in pass rate, which is not a lot. With Kenny Tracy continuing to be out, they are continuing to lean on Jordan Brunson as their workhorse running back. He did not have a lot of success against Toledo. Toledo kind of loaded up the box, kept him bottled up. 4.4 DraftKings points. It's not great. Makes 3 straight games under 10 DraftKings points. In fact, in MAC play, he's only had 1 game in double digits, which was 22 against Eastern Michigan. So there's just not a whole lot to get excited about with Brunson. But like thinking about how this team's going to win this game, they're probably not going to ask Hessen to throw the ball 40 times. It means they're probably going to want to run with Brunson a little bit. The backup running back, Deshaunte Jones, only had 4 carries last week, so it really is Brunson's backfield. I do think he's one of the better running back plays on the slate, but I don't think he's the top running back play on the slate. At the wide receiver position, I continue to be baffled by DraftKings pricing. If you look at season-long totals, Kenny Perry continues to be the season-long leader for this team. And he's been pretty solid. Even in the last 3 weeks, he's been over 10 DraftKings points every single week. He was the leading receiver last week against Toledo with 69 receiving yards. Now, Cole Weaver is the guy who has been really coming on strong as of late. Against Western Michigan, he had 9 catches. Against Ohio, he had 6. Against Toledo, he had 3. I still think that Cole Weaver is probably the guy that you want in this passing attack. even though Cam Perry did have a pretty strong game last week, I would rather take the $1,000 discount and take the guy who's playing better football lately in Cole Weaver. Do not totally discredit Keith Reynolds either. He did have one catch for 11 yards, also carried the ball 4 times last week. So that does mean that they are making a concerted effort to put the football in his hands, and that's always worth something in DFS to me. He's only $4,100. We've talked about how on these MACtion slates, sometimes punting a wide receiver or just playing a cheap wide receiver that no one's thinking about is a profitable move. Oftentimes you end up with random touchdown scores. The fact that Reynolds is a guy that they're looking to get the football in his hands means that he's less random of a touchdown scorer than some other guys. Notre Dame transfer Deion Colsey is still questionable for this game. Braylon Isom is a receiver who had 1 catch last week, and then Brian Shane, the tight end, had 2 catches last week. So I really think that I'm probably just sticking to Perry Weaver and Reynolds here on this one. They're cheap enough that I don't really feel the need to punt a wide receiver on a passing game that is going to be rolling with a backup quarterback. Now, let me check one more thing. Okay. So, yeah, Hessen did not get benched at any point last week. He was the only quarterback that took snaps. Now, on the Buffalo side, they've got Taquan Roberson at quarterback, and this is a Kansas State transfer, former big-time recruit, who has been up and down as Buffalo's starter in the MAC. The good news is like, he's the one guy on the slate with guaranteed passing volume. He's thrown more passes than any other quarterback on this slate, and Buffalo throws more passes in general than any team on this slate. They are 31st nationally in pass rate, which is significantly higher than any other team on this slate. The downside is that he hasn't really shown us any rushing upside, even though he is a good athlete. And he hasn't really had a lot of good performances in MAC play. I mean, if you're just looking at MAC play, there's 3 games where he's been over 20, but every other game he was at 12 or lower. So there's a bit of up and down here. Miami is not the best defense in the MAC, but they're not the worst. They're ranked 40th nationally in rushing yards allowed, 52nd in passing yards allowed. So maybe this could be a chance with Buffalo. You know, you're going to get the most guaranteed passing volume out of Roberson. So I do think that this is not a bad spot to play him. In general, I don't think this is the best spot, but on this slate, I think it's one of the best spots. At the running back position, Al-Jay Henderson is their starting running back. This is a guy that we were drafting in the 1st and 2nd round of full FBS best balls back in, April, May, June. He's a good player, but they just really haven't gotten him going this year in the same way that they did last year. Since MAC play has started, he's taken a little bit of a downturn, but against Bowling Green, he did have a big bounce back with 22. Last week was really bottled up against Central Michigan, which was really, really disappointing. I think when you look at the totality of running backs on this slate, Al-Jay Henderson's very clearly running back number 1 to me. Very clearly the one that you can project for the most points. I don't think it's kind of the same thing with Roberson. Like, I don't think it's the best spot in general, but this slate is kind of slim pickings. It's not the most offensively prolific, so I don't think it's a bad spot for Henderson. Now, the wide receiver position, this is where it does get easy for Buffalo. Because Buffalo passes so much, they actually have the receivers with the 3 most targets on the season on the entire slate, and it's actually fairly balanced. Nick McMillan does lead the team in targets. We mentioned on last week's show how he was due for some touchdown regression, and well, what do you know? He scored 2 touchdowns last week. It was his 4th straight game of 7 or more catches, 4th straight game with over 100 yards, 4th straight game of over 21 DraftKings points, and those 2 touchdowns made it so he got 34 total. He is the top wide receiver play on the slate, in my opinion. And so really, when you're building your lineups, the way that the pricing works, you're probably going to want to take your pick between this Buffalo passing game and the Buffalo rushing attack because they're really pricing you out of playing multiple guys. Victor Snow is 2nd on the team in targets, but he actually scored more DraftKings points than Nick McMillan on the season because he's a little more of a downfield threat, and he's also scored a little bit more touchdowns. He has 10 total on the season, whereas McMillan does not. So Snow does carry some upside as well. I think objectively McMillan is a better play. Go with the guy who's getting more balls thrown his way. But I do think that Snow is absolutely in play. I do think Snow will be a little bit different. So he will be much lower owned than McMillan if you're wanting to go that route. And then just Guy Gathings. Like, this is a guy who has 62 targets on the season. 3rd on the slate. He's only 8 targets behind Victor Snow, yet in pricing, he's like $3,000 behind Victor Snow. That doesn't really add up to me. And I think if you're looking to build a Buffalo double stack, I think it makes a lot of sense to play one of Snow and McMillan and then Gathings as the 2nd guy in. And now, kind of like McMillan, he's only had 1 touchdown this year on 31 catches, so he's kind of due for one. But last week he had 6 for 85. Like, this is a guy who's a legitimate player in this offense, and he's only $4,200. I don't understand the pricing. Now, if you're looking down from there, there's a few receivers that just really aren't involved as much. Evan King, the tight end, caught 2 passes last week. He's only got 9 catches on the season. Like, really, you're just looking for the top three when it comes to the Buffalo side. There's not really anything else you need to look at. All right, that does it for the first game. Let's take a quick breather, and then we're going to hop into game number 2. Before we continue, I do want to mention there are places where you can get more information from me. First off, you can follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks. I'm more than happy to answer any questions if you reach out to me on Twitter, and I'm also tweeting out all updates for the show over there on Twitter. So if you want to stay in the loop with what we got going on, Twitter is a great place to do that. And then I'm also in the Fantasy Corner Discord. Link is in the description on YouTube as well as on the audio feed. If you are looking for a community of a bunch of really smart, really good, genuinely nice people who play DFS for a lot of different sports, not just college football, but also college basketball, NBA, NFL, Fantasy Corner Discord is the place to go. We're always in there talking lineups, talking plays, talking strategy. And then once the games start, we're sweating it out together. It's just an absolute blast and a great community to be a part of if you're looking for one. And then if you want to know who actually makes all of my college football DFS lineups, head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/Mike's Money Picks. Every single college football DFS slate, I post an article with my core plays as well as a full write-up why they are my core plays. I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that that's just going to win you thousands of dollars. It's not that easy, but I can guarantee that you're going to get well thought out, well researched information from somebody who knows what they're talking about. All right, now let's continue on with game number 2. It's going to be between Central Michigan and Kent State. This one is definitely the much more appealing game environment on the slate. Central Michigan's 8.5 points, meaning, and with a game total of 50.5, meaning the implied total is about 29-21 in favor of the Chippewas. Now, both of these defenses are not that great, but both these offenses are not that great. So that's kind of the give and take here is you've got the two by far worst defenses on the slate, with also the worst two offenses on the slate. So what's going to win out? Is it going to be, good defense winning out in the first game, or is it going to be bad defense winning out in the second game? I don't really know. But if you're looking at these teams, Central Michigan is 131st nationally in pass rate. This is a team that loves to run the football. They are going up against a Kent State defense that is 111th in rushing yards allowed, 127th in passing yards allowed. So they're kind of like Burger King. They'll let you have it your way. When it comes to the quarterback position for Central Michigan, the current starter is Joe Labas. He's all right, I guess. The good news is he hasn't really played a whole lot of bad defenses like this one. He wasn't really good against Akron, which is a bad defense. Against UMass, he wasn't really needed. That was a bad defense, but that was like a complete boat race of a game. So I don't really know what to make of him, right? The problem is that he was the backup for a lot of the season with Angel Flores as the starter. Angel Flores is listed as out against the last game. And really, actually, I guess they've kind of used Flores as just a runner, and they've kind of used Labas as just a passer. You look at these passing attempts for Flores. Flores is not in the game to throw. They kind of did this a few years back with Bert Emanuel, if you guys remember that. So really, the more appealing fantasy option is Flores if he's playing. But if Flores is not playing, then that definitely does make Labas somewhat appealing, because I think that the Central Michigan passing game is going to have success. Now, what's interesting is with Flores out, you have seen a little bit more usage for the running backs. Brock Townsend, not really great against Buffalo, but previously had the huge game against UMass. Nari Biggins, again, kind of not really great against Buffalo, but he's been consistently a part of it every single week. And then Trey Cornist had 10 carries for 62 against Buffalo. He was the most productive of all the backs against Buffalo, but he doesn't ever score. He only has one touchdown on the season. So it's just really kind of like this give and take of Flores being in changes up the offense to such a degree. And then really they kind of use Marcus Beeman in the Flores role last week as well. It's kind of is just a mess to play anybody in this rushing attack. It's just really not great to play. Now, if you want to play multiple lineups and you want to take your shots at the Central Michigan rushing attack and spread it out amongst multiple guys, go for it. But if you're playing one lineup, it's really hard to take a stand and feel great about any of the options in the Central Michigan rushing attack. Like I said, I think Labas, with Flores out, it does increase his pass attempts. You can see in the games that Flores has been out, Labas has been throwing more passes. But I don't know. They're kind of they're back to using Beeman kind of how they use Flores. So this is just it's a mess. It's a mess at quarterback and running back for Central Michigan. The wide receiver position. There's something to like here. Okay, Langston Lewis is their wide receiver 1. He's been their wide receiver 1 all season. Back-to-back games of 24 DraftKings points. Core play for me last week against Buffalo. That was one I got right. I think he's a guy you want to target. Kent State's not a good pass defense. You don't need a full 300 yards and 2 touchdowns to hit value with this wide receiver at $4,300, right? Like if Labas only throws 150 yards, but Lewis is 80 of them and a touchdown, Lewis is going to pay off value. So that's what I'm looking at is like, hey, I can pick pieces of this wide receiver room for Central Michigan, and the target threshold is so much lower for what they need to score to be considered a good value that's kind of what I'm looking at, because this team's projected to score 29 points. Good luck figuring out where it's coming from. But if I get one from the wide receiver, I don't need as much, right? Like even at the running back position, Townsend, Biggins, and Cornish, they're not super cheap. Like they're cheap among running backs, but there's still a pretty big target there. So Lewis at $4,300, that's a guy I like. I also don't mind Tommy McIntosh at $4,000, even 5 for 85 and a touchdown last week. He is the second most targeted receiver in this offense, and then Tyson Davis is third. It seems like he's been there forever. Been talking about him on these MACtion slates for a long time. He's a guy that I kind of just always get in my player pool because he pops up for these random big games. And then I'm not gonna lie to y'all, it's really hard to find a whole lot appealing in the rest of the Central Michigan passing attack aside from those guys. DeCorian Temple is the tight end. One catch that wasn't even last week. That was a while ago. So there's just not really a whole lot here to like outside of Lewis, McIntosh, and Davis. The good news is this is a pretty small pool of wide receivers on this slate. Like I don't see this being a slate where we have a whole lot of like super random backup wide receiver scores. Now, on the Kent State side, they rank 91st in pass rate, so they're still a run-first offense at their core, and they're taking on Central Michigan, who is 87th in rush yards allowed, 76th in passing yards allowed. Drew DeShields is the starter, and we've kind of seen the MO for Drew Shields, right? Like when the Kent State offense has a lot of success, Drew Shields is going to put up a lot of DraftKings points. 28 against Buffalo, 21 against UMass, 34 against Kent. The common denominator of those games, they scored at least... I'm sorry, against Akron was the last game. My bad. They scored at least 28 points in all three of those games. In games where they don't get to 28, he ain't so good. So if you think the Kent State offense has some success here, Drew DeShields is the guy to play. If you're looking to play a game stack, Drew DeShields is the guy to play. So to me, that makes him like a clear path guy, right? Like if you're building lineups by hand or with an optimizer, the story, if you're playing Drew DeShields, is, I think the Kent State offense is going to score 28 plus points. And so then you can start stacking receivers and running backs accordingly. You can play other guys on the Central Michigan side accordingly. I think that's kind of the way you want to play Drew DeShields, is in a game stack or in a team stack. Now, at the running back position, this has been kind of frustrating because we've just gone over, like, this is a team that wants to win by running the football, but they run the football with two guys, and it's just kind of annoying in that way. Jordan Newman has been kind of playing second fiddle recently against Akron on Veterans Day last week. Only 4 carries for 10 yards. Gavin Garcia, 7 for 39. Gavin Garcia got the touchdown, which meant he had the better fantasy performance. But still, like this, it was dominated by the passing game that week. So what that means is you're not really going to want to play DeShields with one of the running backs in this group, right? Like you're really just looking to play DeShields in the wide receivers, because if DeShields is scoring a lot, it's going to really steal from those running backs, and those running backs are going to steal from each other. So it's really, really a hard click. Like I said, like at the top, like those two running backs in that Miami Buffalo game, Henderson and Brunson, like those are by far the top 2 running backs on this slate to me. Now, at the wide receiver position, I do like me some of these Kent State boys, okay? This is a team that is a pretty darn condensed passing offense. So they're really not going to throw to a whole lot of guys like outside their comfort zone. Cade Walford is the guy that's first in DraftKings pricing. He scored the most DraftKings points on the season for them, but he doesn't see the most overall volume. He's only caught 17 passes, but when he does catch passes, they're usually deep. That's why he's up here in price. So I do think that there is a little bit of merit to playing him if you think he's just going to get some bombs in the Akron game. It only took 1 pass for him to get 13.3 DraftKings points. He also ran the ball 3 times. So much like what we talked about earlier, this is a guy who they're looking to get the ball in his hands because he is an explosive playmaker. I like Deshaun Martin the most. He is second on the team overall in targets. We're going to talk about the guy who's first in a second. But he's got a very balanced profile, right? Like he can catch longer passes. He can score touchdowns. He's got 3 on the season. And then you look at Mac play. He has got 3 games over 10 DraftKings points. And his season high was against Florida State, which is quite impressive. So this is a guy who can do it against any defense in any game format, any type of environment. $4,700. I'm here for it. Wayne Harris is actually the target leader on the season, but he kind of has the same problem with one of the guys we were talking about on Buffalo earlier. I think it was Gathings. He's caught 29 passes on the year, but only one of them has been longer than 27 yards. Only one of them has been in the end zone for a touchdown. So you're either due for some touchdown regression for Wayne Harris, or you're just going to get this similar profile of, hey, he's going to catch somewhere between 3 and 5 passes for somewhere between 40 and 70 yards. And $3,800, I'm kind of here for it, right? Like, there's much worse options out there, in my opinion. Now, I will mention Ardell Banks last week, 2 for 28 and a touchdown, was a touchdown scorer last week. Now he's seeing a price increase because of it. And then DeRealist Clark, one of the best names in all of college football. Last week, he started off the game with a 89-yard bomb. He returned a kick for a touchdown against Merrimack. He really hadn't done crap since then. I guess he returned another kick against UMass, so I stand corrected. But the 89-yard bomb against Akron, his third catch of the year. But when it's an 89-yard touchdown, it's going to turn heads a little bit. And if you're looking for a fun way to spend your money, right? Like I'm not going to be one to tell you like how to spend your money. But if you want to play on vibes and you want to play a guy named DeRealist, I can't fault you for it, right? Like that's just that's a really cool name. So I wouldn't mind. I think if you're playing a lot of lineups, I think he might be worth a shot in the player pool because just, hey, what in case he does catch another 89-yard bomb? All right, that's going to do it for this Tuesday night slate. Hopefully we gave you guys all the information you're going to need to know in order to build some winning DraftKings and FanDuel lineups for this slate, as well as any winning player props or bets on sides and totals. This is really just, it's kind of a mess of a slate. Like the Central Michigan of it all, just how they're so unknown at quarterback and running back, really does mess with you a little bit. And then Buffalo, there's some guys to like because they're a condensed offense, but they're so high priced. So it's just going to be this balance of, how can I construct a lineup that's going to make sense, it's going to get the guys I want, and it is going to feature the right amount of ownership? Because I definitely think there's some guys who are going to be pretty chalky, like we talked about with those 2 top running backs, and then a few of the top wide receivers. Anyway, that's going to do it here for this episode, y'all. If you want more from me, or actually, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. If this video helped you out, please hit the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, please rate and review. If you're listening on audio, it helps me out a ton when you guys do that. I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate it. This year is a huge time of growth for me, and it's really helpful when you guys do that. I cannot stress it enough. And then if you want more from me, remember, follow me on Twitter, join the Fantasy Corner Discord. Link is in the description for that. And you got the plays, core plays, every single slate on Patreon. But that's going to do it here for this episode, y'all. 2 MACtion slates to go. Let's hopefully make this one a winner. Best of luck to you guys on the Wednesday night slate. Thank you guys for watching and listening to this point, and I will see you guys next time.